The red beret sits on the edge of the kitchen windowsill. Not hung up, not displayed, just sitting there, the way something sits when a person is not yet sure what to do with it. The grey morning light comes through the net curtains. Outside, a neighbor rolls a bin to the curb. A kettle begins its slow climb to boiling. Elise, 29, stands at the sink with both hands braced against the cold porcelain. Her jaw is tight. Her dark eyes are fixed on the beret. There is a hole in the shoulder seam of her fleece that she has not bothered to mend. She was told yesterday that she was not selected. Elise grew up in a terraced house in Wolverhampton, the kind of street where everyone knows everyone's business, but nobody quite says so. The back garden was the size of a parking space, just enough room for her dad's tomatoes and a rotary clothesline that always caught the wind wrong. Her father, Dennis, 51, was a broad man with a scar above his right eyebrow from a scaffold accident he never talked about. He coached her to run, not because he thought it would lead anywhere. He just knew that a girl who could outrun the boys on her street would never feel small. She ran everywhere. She ran before school, in her uniform shoes because her trainers had a hole in them. She ran on Sunday mornings past the corner shop and the chicken place and the little Methodist church with the peeling notice board. She ran when things were hard and when things were good, and when she had no particular reason except that her legs asked her to. At 16, she told her secondary school form teacher, Mr. Harding, that she wanted to join the army. "That's a nice idea," Mr. Harding said. He did not look up from his register. She joined at 18. Basic training was not the hardest thing Elise had ever done. That surprised her. The hardest thing had been quieter, being the only girl in the room who was not apologizing for being in the room. She passed selection with scores that turned heads. She was posted to the Parachute Regiment's support cadre. She trained in signals, in field medicine, in close terrain navigation. She was methodical, patient. She read maps the way some people read novels, with total absorption and a slight smile. By 24, she had been recommended for Special Forces selection. It was theoretical at the time. The formal integration of women into Ranger selection had only just begun, and the word "first" hung over everything like a ceiling no one wanted to name. She named it. In a letter to her commanding officer, Major Griffiths, 44, a lean, weathered woman with close-cropped silver hair and a reputation for cutting through nonsense, Elise wrote 6 words. "I intend to complete this selection." Major Griffiths read it twice, then she signed the paperwork. Selection was designed to break candidates. That was not cruelty, it was engineering. The process was a machine built to identify the exact point at which a person stops choosing and starts just surviving. Elise found her point on day 11. It was 3 in the morning on a Welsh hillside. The rain was sideways. Her Bergen weighed more than felt possible. Her left boot had a split across the sole that let in water with every step, and she had stopped feeling her smaller toes hours ago. She sat down on a rock. Not to quit, just to sit. A candidate she had been walking with, a quiet man named Dale, 31, with crooked teeth and a habit of humming when he was concentrating, sat down beside her without being asked. "You stopping?" he said. "No," she said. He nodded. He stood up. She stood up. They walked for another 6 hours in total silence. She passed selection. Dale did not. She thought about him for a long time afterwards. The year she turned 29, Elise was put forward for a command position within the Ranger Regiment. At that point, she had led patrols in 4 countries. She had trained foreign forces in 2 more. She had been shot at, and once had a vehicle she was in hit by a device she would not describe in detail to anyone outside a debrief room. The nomination was contested. Not officially. Officially, the process was fair and the criteria were objective, but in the margins, in the conversations that happened in corridors and mess halls and over pints, she heard the familiar music. The same tune she had heard at 16, at 18, at 24, not loud enough to confront, just audible enough to know it was playing. She did not address it directly. She had learned, through long practice, that some things are better answered with results than with words. She was confirmed as commander of B Squadron, 1st Battalion, the Ranger Regiment. The first woman to hold that rank. Major Griffiths called her the night before the announcement. There was a pause on the line before she spoke. "You earned it," she said. "I know," Elise said, "but thank you for saying it anyway." Now it is a Tuesday morning in Wolverhampton. The kettle has clicked off. The neighbour has gone back inside. The street is the familiar grey and terracotta of a Midlands suburb that has not changed much in 30 years, except for the cars and the bins and the satellite dishes. Elise picks up the beret. She turns it in her hands once. She is not looking at it the way she was before, like a question she could not answer. She is looking at it the way you look at something that belongs to you, that has always belonged to you, that was never in any real doubt. She sets it on her head. She adjusts it in the reflection of the kitchen window. Outside, Dennis is in the back garden in the early light, checking his tomatoes. He looks up and sees her through the glass. He does not wave the way the neighbors wave, politely and at a distance. He just nods, slowly. She nods back. If Elise's story stayed with you today, I want you to ask yourself one question. Whose voice have you been letting sit in the room for too long? Not the voice that tells you to run harder or train longer or push through the pain. The other one. The one that says you are in the wrong room entirely. Some rooms are built by people who assumed you would never try to enter them. Enter anyway. If this story moved you, please like this video and leave a comment about a moment when someone underestimated you. And if you are new here, subscribe to Soul Relief Stories. We are here every week with true stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things quietly, without fanfare, on grey Tuesday mornings in terraced houses in the Midlands. We will see you in the next one.